And ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And first of all, I'd like to thank the organizer to give me this opportunity to give a talk here in this conference. And the title of my talk today is "The Tides Are Changing." And I choose this title is mainly because the theme of this PNC conference, is the sea change. The sea change, and which is very much coincide with the theme of the World Ocean Day of the United Nations every June 8th every year. And but I think that what does this means? Maybe a lot of people don't know. So because I personally have promoted this marine conservation in Taiwan for more than 30 years. So I have some insights to share with you. And to put it simply, this theme told us that it is the time to put the ocean in the first place, the red rectangular circle. So the tides are changed also told us that marine conservation currently is the international trend, which has changed from a land-based conservation thinking to an ocean-based thinking, because the planet oceans are facing human and natural damage seriously, such as the overfishing, habitat destruction, climate change, ocean acidification, and pollution. So it can be said that the ocean are in a critical situation. So it is very important for us to understand and recognize these disturbance factors in order to find an effective solution to solve the problem. More and more studies recently have found that there is a close relationship among the climate change, biodiversity, and the human being, which can be said to be the cause and effect and among each others. So if human damage nature and cause loss of biodiversity, which will increase the risk of climate change and global warming as well, and at the end, and the human society will suffer from this impact. So on the contrary, if we can protect biodiversity, climate change will be slowed down, and the human being will be benefits, and the society will be able to be developed sustainably. So in other words, protecting the natural and the biodiversity is the natural based solution, what we call the NBS. So you can see in the middle, the purple color. This is a kind of a new term we call the natural-based solution or natural-based solution to adapt and mitigate the impacts of climate change. And it's certainly good to the human being, to all of us. For example, the coastal wetlands are able to mitigate an impact of the climate change because they have the what's so-called the blue carbon function. That is the mangrove, salt marsh, and the seagrass beds are not only many times more capable of absorbing carbon than tropical rainforest, but also the anaerobic environment of the mud flats has a better carbon sequestration capacity, and the plant in the wetland will have the same problem as a forest wildfire, which would instead release more carbon. The first term is also new. What is the fish carbon? Because the tissue of all marine vertebrates, including fish, contain the carbon inside. Most of fish body is made up the protein, but there is also about 10 to 15% of carbon. Fish their secretions and excretions or dead body, they will settle down to the sea bottom of the ocean when they died. So they will take the carbon from the food chain, from the upper layer of the ocean, and transfer into the sediment on the sea bottom. So the amount of the carbon carried by the one fish may be very limited, but the amount of carbon carried by many, many fish can be significant. So therefore, the designation of marine protected area where fish can continue to live in the ocean and not to be depleted is still very important to mitigate the problem of climate change. In other words, overfishing is a problem also to the climate change. So in particular, the marine protected area can prevent bottom trawling, as you can see from the right side of the figure, which can extract carbon from the seabed and release it back into the water column and the atmosphere. According to the study conducted 2 years ago in one academic journal, they say that the amount of carbon released from the seabed by the global bottom trawling each year is equivalent to the total amount of carbon emitted by the world aviation fuel in the 1 year. So you know the bottom trawl is really not good to the or global warming. So the loss of biodiversity is another serious problem that will make it impossible for the human being to develop sustainably. I think we all have heard about the sixth great extinction of the life on Earth. So therefore, the United Nations established the International Convention of Biological Diversity, CBD, in 1992, and require all the countries to work together to curb this situation. The reason why we do not notice the extinction of species, especially marine organisms, is that it is relatively easy to discover new species and new records of a species. And the scientists will add one to the total as long as they have collected one single specimen and proof that is new. So as you can see, the curve here is all upward. And however, it is very difficult to prove that the loss of species or its extinction is completed. And they can be only said that disappear at the most, not extinction. So only the disappearance of endemic species with a very narrow geographical distribution range can be considered as the extinction. I can give you one example of this Taiwanese half-beak. They only live in the estuary of Tanshui River in the northern Taiwan. However, the last specimen we collect is 1969. After that, they're all gone. So that told us that the pollution in the Tanshui River during the period of past 30 to 50 years already wiped out all these species. So another problem is that it takes at least 30 to 50 years of accumulated long-term data to realize how quickly the species disappears or go to extinct. For example, in a paper published in 2015, I reported on fish specimen we collected from the cooling water, the intake place of the 2 nuclear power plants in the northern Taiwan. Of the sea, which was the pump in with the marine trash, garbage. And we pick up all the fish specimen, each one, and identify their species and count their numbers. So after 30 years of data, then you can see this curve. They all go down. It means the number of species as well as the number of individuals. So only about 1/4 left if you compare to the data about 30 years ago. So if you don't have this long-term data, you will not see how the biodiversity loss is so serious. So this is why the tides are changed, which means that the people are shifting from the emphasize the terrestrial conservation to marine conservation, such as this CBD COP meeting. They meet every 2 years, and they will publish a GBO, we call the Global Biodiversity Outlook, every 4 or 5 years. It will organize the indicators come from the national reports submitted by each country and present the trend of global biodiversity. For example, after the end of the 10 years targets of 2010 in the GBO3, it was found that the rate of the extinction of vertebrates on the land was slowing down, as you can see on the left lower figures, those mammals, reptiles, and the birds. But the rate of decline of marine organisms, such as the coral reef organisms, are straight downwards, as you can see that another lines on the left figures. And this is also the case in the subsequent publication GBO4 and the GBO5. This also shows once again that the collapse of the marine ecosystem is just a matter of time if we don't do something quickly. So, before I retired in 2016, I had attended about 8 times of meeting of the CBD COP and observed personally that in the past 10 years, the topic discussed in the side events or peripheral meetings of the COP meeting has changed from land-based conservation to the marine conservation. There are all means that the main reason why the marine conservation has been neglected I think the reason, there are 3 reasons why people ignore this marine conservation, how important it was. The first is the human live on the land and not underwater, so no one can see what happens underwater. So we don't care about that. And the second is the many countries, including Taiwan, the government units responsible for the natural conservation used to be the Forest Administration under the Ministry of Agriculture, and they do not know much about the oceans. And the third reason, I think, is politicians. They only care about the votes. And while fishermen, they have the vote, but the fish, they do not. And that is why the government budget is almost spent on the building the bridge, paving the road, building the park, or subsidizing the cost of fishing for fishermen, rather than they invest in marine conservation and restorations. So the situation finally changed in Taiwan in 2018, when the Taiwan established the Ocean Affairs Council with the 2 specialized units in addition to the Coast Guards, the National Academy of Marine Research, and the Ocean Conservation Administration. So this organization, they can start to formulate the relevant laws on the protection of the marine environment and the ecological conservation, as well as to fight for the manpower and the physical budget or resources to promote the legislation, education, and the management of marine conservation. So, therefore, the basic law for the ocean was passed in 2019, and the white paper on the ocean was passed in 2022. And the Marine Pollution Prevention and Control Act and the Marine Industrial Development Act also completed their legislation earlier in this year. However, the more important one, the law of the marine conservation, that is actually specialized, the law for the marine protected area, is still under the review stage. I think the biggest breakthrough in the international tide of the, sorry, oh, it's okay, should be the 2015, the United Nations SDG, which separated the sea and the land into the two different goals, number 14 and number 15, so that the conservation of the oceans will no longer be covered by and ignored by the conservation on the land. So in the SDG 14 for the ocean, there are a total of 10 targets, which are set up improvement target and deadline for the main destruction factors, including the pollution prevention and control, integrated coastal management, ocean acidification, overfish and illegal fishing, what we call the IUU, eliminate fishery negative subsidies, establish marine protected area, and enhanced of scientific research, etc. So as the results, there have been several breakthroughs of new milestone in the global marine conservation in the last 2 years. For example, in 2022, after 21 years of the negotiation, the WTO, the World Trade Organization, has finally reached a consensus on the elimination of the negative fishery subsidies, which has been started to co-signed by the many countries. The second is last November, the CITES COP19 approved the inclusion of 99 endangered species of sharks and rays in the CITES 2 category list of the protected species. The third is at the end of the last year, the 15th CBD COP announced the new Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which has 23 action targets, including that very famous to us is 30 by 30. That means 30% of global ocean should be protected by 2030. Then, in March of this year, the United Nations adopted the BBNJ agreement, what we call the Convention of the High Sea, which is now open for signature by all the countries to include the high sea in the scope of protection and management. The last one, so we expect by the end of the next year, the December, another global convention on the prevention of plastic pollution will also be adopted, which should be able to promote the prevention of the marine waste more effectively. So all these new movements indicate that the tides are changing. So the SDG target 14.1 emphasizes only two types of pollutants. One is the eutrophication, another is the marine litter, marine debris, the pollutions. So in fact, 90% of these marine litters come from plastic waste, and the 10% among them is discarded by the fishing net and fishing gears. Most of these marine waste, where they come from? They come from the PET bottles, plastic cups, plastic bags, and straws, etc. So 80% of which come from the rivers. And Asia region is the most serious area as you can see on the right chart. The Taiwan's Environmental Protection Agency, we have set up a schedule for the, schedule for the, all these restricting the banning of this use of plastic cups, bags, straws, and they are working very hard to promote this program. So at the meeting of Nairobi in the last March, 175 countries, they agreed to develop a global convention to end ocean pollution by plastics, including the regulations on their manufacturers, use, and deposit, which occurs when the nutrition salt, like nitrogen, phosphate, and the potassium from over-fertilized agriculture flowed into the oceans via the rivers or streams, will result in the eutrophication of the seawaters. Although there are more phytoplankton, there should be more zooplankton and the fish. But the problem is that after there are only a few fish, so the excess, the plankton, they don't have predator to eat them. So they will sink to the bottom and of the sea after they die. So, and during the process of their decomposition by bacteria, the oxygen will be consumed. So they'll have no oxygen at all in that water layer. That means there's no living organisms will be able to survive. And this is what we know about a term called a dead zone. The number of this kind of dead zone is increasing gradually in the global waters, so which has attracted the attention of many scientists. So the target 14.4 is to effectively regulate and eliminate overfishing and illegal fishing, because the global fishing production has been drastically reduced in the past 70 years. So the agricultural fishery accounts for only about 20% of the total in the 1980s. But in the 2015, the agriculture and the marine capture fisheries have already shared half and half of the total. If no further improvement, so what we said that the business as usual. So it is estimated that by 2030, so marine capture fisheries will account only for 38% of annual wild fish production. So with the remaining only 62 were made by the farmed fish. So moreover, 1/5 of the wild fish caught is not for the human consumption, but is made into the fish meal to feed the farm fish. The fishery statistics of Taiwan, as you can see from this figure, also show the similar trend. In the past 60 years, the production and value of our fisheries have been declining. And compared with the 1980s, the production of offshore fisheries has been reduced by more than half. The high sea fishing industries is also declining. As you can see, this green curve. And even worse is that the production of the agricultural fisheries in Taiwan has not increased. So it is even more important for us to increase the establishment of the marine protected area in the future in Taiwan. The SDG target 14.6 aim to eliminate all the negative subsidies of the fisheries industry by 2030. Because of many of the current problems of overfishing are caused by the government, subsidized to the fishermen's industry. For example, the use of the oil for the fishing boats or the hiring foreign fishermen will keep the cost of fishing lower. So the fishermen, they do not think of to switch into another job. So that fewer and fewer fish will be left in the ocean. According to the research report in the 2018, as you can see on the right chart, 58% of the high sea fishing industry actually relies on the government subsidized to make profits, especially the bottom trout industry. So therefore, SDG 14.6 requests countries to reduce or even completely eliminate these negative subsidies. Also, Taiwan is not a member of UN, but we are the major high sea fishing country, so it cannot stand alone aside. Taiwan has the second largest number of the high sea fishing vessels in the world, second only to the China. In addition, 1 ton of fish caught will release 1.9 tons of carbon. So the more fish a fisherman catch, the more carbon will be released. So it can be said that it is an invisible killer of the climate warming. Marine protected area are the simplest and the most economic and the most effective way to restore the fishery resources. A certain percentage of the area of the sea, if we establish it as a marine protected area, to give the fish a safe home, so that when they can getting more and more fish, they certainly will swim out by themselves, which we call it the spillover effect. So it is like depositing money in the bank as the principal, which can be utilized in a sustainable way as long as the interest is withdrawing. So at an international conference, I saw a Japanese scholar. They introduced MPA in Japan. They use this slogan, the sea is the bank, fish are deposits, and the interest will be generated. So in Chinese is 海事银行于是存款会生利息. So this is the also the reason why the current trend of international marine conservation has changed from the species conservation method to habitat protection, or what we call the marine protected area. For example, the 2020 Aichi targets, which was held in the Nagoya, I was there, they call for 10% of the world ocean to be designated as a protected area by end of 2020, or what we call the 10 by 20 targets. And in 2015, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 14.5 adopt these targets of Aichi targets. And the 2022 Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, we call the KMGBF goals, requires that 30% of the world ocean, including the high seas, should be designated as MPAs by 2030. We call the 30 by 30 targets. And the last, another high sea treaty, which has just been adopted in 2023, will also begin to discuss how to incorporate the management measures of the MPA and the environmental impact assessment, EIA, into the high sea, or the BBNJ, or what we call the ABNJ area. So the SDG target 14.5 originally was asked only for 10 by 20, but by the end of 2020, you know, only 70.8% of the target has been partially achieved. So they are not fully achieved. However, when the meeting was held, at the end of the 2022, not 2020 because the COVID-19. And almost all the parties agreed that it would be too late if they didn't take a drastic action and hurry it up. So the target of 30 by 30 was finally adopted. So SDG target 14.C is to implement and strengthen the protection of the high sea under the International Convention on the Law of the Sea, especially the protection of the high sea fisheries. The resources, you know, those highly migrated fishery resources has been almost 70 to 80% decline and overfished, especially for the deep sea biodiversity. After the 20 years of negotiation among the members of country of the United Nations, so on the March of 4th this year, the BBNJ agreement on the high sea was finally completed. And the treaty was formally adopted in June of this year, in the middle. And then the treaty is open for signature on the September 21st this year, on the right. So they all were all reported in Taiwan newspapers. So the reason why the high sea need to be protected is that the high sea are in fact belong to two kinds of marine ecosystem. The first is open ocean. We call it the 大洋生态系. Another is deep ocean, deep sea, 深海生态系. So, especially for the deep sea ecosystem, as they are recognized, they are very fragile and unknown marine ecosystem because they we lack the survey information and data, but they are likely to be hotspots of the biodiversity, including those ecosystems like the seamount and like the cold water, corals, hydrothermal vent, and the cold ships. And these maps show where these ecosystems they are located. So, how is the Taiwan going to be achieve these 30 by 30 goals? What are our challenges? The government always try to ask me, give their recommendation or suggestion. I know it is quite unlikely to be done, but however, I would suggest. So, personally, I think that Taiwan can help to achieve this 30 by 30 goal, because about 3/4 of the EEZ zone, we call it exclusively economic zone, which belong to the open ocean and the deep sea ecosystem in Taiwan. So therefore, Taiwan can make effort in the directions to reduce the fishing vessels, prohibiting illegal fishing, and reducing the negative subsidies, which will also comply with the SDG 14.4 and 14.6. And the second, we hope to the signatories is establish the open ocean and the deep sea protected areas inside this EEZ zone. The EEZ zone show here this boundary, and this show the how deep the marine bottoms in Taiwan, around Taiwan. So if we can really do it, it will greatly help to increase the proportion of Taiwanese marine protected area significantly. So as for the Taiwanese inshore or coastal areas, I have also suggested that the government should designate all the biodiversity rich area like coral reef, as well as the mangrove forest, seagrass beds, and the salt marsh wetlands, which all have the blue carbon function as the marine protected area. And ideally, prohibit fishing altogether, what we call it the core zone or no-take area, or the exclusively no-take area. No any fishing method can get in, so can go in. So that's very important. So in addition, the inventory and evaluation and the certification, what we call the OECM. The full name English is Other Effective Area-Based Conservation Measures, very long term. So we just can simply call it OECM, which is an alternative type of marine protected area. Can also be included in the areas ratio of the MPAs. So the OECM is the areas that are not originally intended for the protection of marine organisms, but can be included in the MPA is because their effective management, which has the effect of a protected area. For example, like the right side, the figure, the green color means the offshore wind farm where they are located in Taiwan. So this 36 potential site for the offshore wind farm, you know, this green energy is very actively promoted by Taiwan government recently. The purpose is to replace the nuclear power plant, you know, by 2025. So it's very close now. So we are promoted very much, you know, hard. So actually, this wind farm site is the best OECM, and because they have both effect of artificial reefs as well as the protected area. Unfortunately, this film cannot be played. Oh yes, they can play, great. This is what we have took underwater in 2017 to 2018 in some, you know, wind turbines underwater. You can see a lot of fish gathering around there. So all the, you know, the net fishing, like a bottom trout, they are not to come in. So in that area, so we hope Taiwanese government can set up a regulation, the fisher boat, how close they can come, and or they should not be get into fishing. So fortunately, our government is now really thinking how to set up that kind of regulation. So that is very important. So if all this OWF, offshore wind farm, can be protected, that will be increase our marine protected area a lot. So that's what I hope. So another milestone is the species conservation, is the restoration of the CITES COP19 meeting in Panama in the last year, which including the 99 species of sharks and rays in the second conservation category of category 2. Actually, this is a very significant change compared to the previous meeting from the 2003 to 2019. As you can see on the left side at the bottom, only a very few species were adopted and agreed to be listed as the protected species at that time. So this also shown the urgency of our marine conservations. So on the contrary, there are only 8 species of marine fish listed as the official conservation marine animals in Taiwan, 6 of which are sharks and rays, which are completely prohibited from being caught and traded. But however, according to the latest statistics from the Taiwan Fish Database, as you can see on the left side, and there are more than 3,500 species of marine fishes in Taiwan. Mostly are marine species. So, therefore, there is still a lot of room for Taiwan to make efforts in the species conservation. I would like to use this the end of my talk for a few slides. What I dived a few days ago here in Okinawa with my son and my granddaughter. She's only 10 years old. Frankly, where I dive at Itomen and Nago. That's two force. I dive 4 tanks. So frankly speaking, the coral reefs in here, Okinawa, is much, much better than Taiwan in terms of marine conservation, because I have been diving in Taiwan for more than 45 years. And I cannot see the fish that I used to see in Taiwan a long time ago. But I'm glad that I can see here. They are still here. They still have a chance to come back to Taiwan. Oh no, crucial always come upward. So anyway, therefore I think that Taiwan still has a lot of marine conservation to learn from Japan and Okinawa in the future, especially the marine protected area management. Thank you very much for your attention, and welcome for your advice and questions. Thank you.